Welcome to the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom podcast with Jacob Ayers, providing actionable content to help you along your journey to financial freedom through real estate investing. As the premier asset class, real estate has helped ordinary people just like you amass fortunes. The benefits of passive income from real estate investing will allow you to live a life you want. And now your host, entrepreneur, real estate investor, and apartment deal syndicator, Jacob Ayers.
All right, today we have on our show, Mike Alder. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Hey, buddy. Thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mike, before we get started, can you introduce yourself a little bit and tell the audience about how you got started investing in real estate?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Mike Alder. I got into real estate investing over 20 years ago, and it was the ugliest thing that ever happened to me initially. So I'll take you back to the late 90s. I was 18, 19 years old. Infomercials were all the rage at that time. And all I knew is if you stayed up real late at night or got up real early in the morning, you saw some really cool things going on. People were hanging out in this big money game. They were, driving flashy cars, and it all came from buying real estate. Now, anybody with some common sense would say, okay, I need to buy a program and learn this real estate game. Now, me personally, I was like, these people bought real estate and they're rich. I'm just going to go out and blindly buy real estate. That was a good idea to me. So this was at a time where banks would just hand you money for asking, So I went out and I was buying singles, doubles, fourplexes. I had no idea how to analyze numbers, anything. So I was just blindly buying these rental properties. And as fast as I got in, I learned even faster that contractors steal from you. Tenants don't pay their rent. Cash flow is something that has to be analyzed up front. And so while I was buying all these things, within probably 18 months, and this right after September 11th happened as well, so one of my other business crashed. I didn't have the backup income, but I had zero money coming in. I was getting foreclosed on left and right because I had absolutely no clue on what I was doing. So I had a crash course in real estate in less than 24 months that I got in, went huge as I could, made zero money, and lost everything.
Well, that sounds quite the learning experience.
It was. I don't recommend it for anybody, but that's how my first approach to real estate. But from there, what had happened was I never lost the real estate bug. I knew it was huge. I knew it was the ticket to freedom. But I was so beat down from that loss that basically I just worked my butt off for the next 5 or 6 years. I'm a carpet installer by trade. So I just, was trying to build myself back up, get my family back on track. And finally, after 5 or 6 years, enough was enough. And I bought Tony Robbins' Get the Edge and Personal Power programs off of eBay. And I was like, I will do everything this man says because everybody speaks so highly of it. Mm-hmm. And I listened to the program day in and day out. And my carpet business at that time, which is the least sexy business out there, my income started skyrocketing from that. And then based on that, my confidence boosted. And once your confidence is up, that's when it's time to make moves. And we had the big real estate crash in 2008. I had a bunch of money I had saved up, and that's when I dove back in the game and started attacking again.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it's pretty cool that you were able to experience those losses and still keep your eye at the end of the tunnel and persevere through those hard times and know that real estate was where you wanted to be, even though you'd already kind of fallen on your face once with it. So awesome. So Mike, what are you doing now? You've kind of got out of the real estate game for a bit, and then you're back into some stuff now. Can you tell us about what that is?
Yeah, so after the big crash, what I did was I started wholesaling properties. So I was buying cheap properties in Cleveland, Ohio, paying $4,000 for them, flipping them for $6,000, building myself back up, and that's when we entered into the cash flow model. So we would raise private money. We would buy these properties, renovate them, place tenants, and then sell the end product to typically West Coast investors because the Midwest offers a better return than they could get in their neighborhood.
Right.
And this was the model up until 2 years ago. I absolutely loved it. We got to a point where we were getting so big, we were understaffed, and we had all these properties and tenants were coming and going. So one day, actually 2 months prior to this situation happening, I'm friends with Nick Loper from Side Hustle Show. He reaches out to me and he's like, hey, Mike, I just interviewed this guy. He buys and sells raw land. He says he has the best passive income model, blah, blah, blah. I was like, whatever, Nick, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, right? So I go back to doing what my cash flow model of buying these duplexes and renovating them. And like I said, we got so big, we were understaffed. And the one day I had to go in and do all the work. So I'm cleaning up all the trash this tenant left behind. I'm painting walls, doing all this stuff I couldn't stand doing. Now, I'm not above getting dirty, but I know my time is better valued in other areas. So I was like, what was that stuff Nick was talking about? And so I went back and I listened to the episode, and I was like, there was something to this. This guy was buying tax defaulted properties for pennies on the dollar, literally, and then turn around and seller financing them. And I just fell in love with it after that. I'm like, that's the model. It's exactly what I'm doing, but it eliminates all the headaches. So a year ago, I got really serious about it, and I went back to my private lenders. I said, we've switched everything up, and this is the new model now. They loved it. They knew, they were safe investing in me. So I went out and just started buying property in New Mexico, Arizona, Southeast California, Florida, completely virtual model. I would buy these things for a couple $100s a head. I would turn around and list them on sites like Craigslist, eBay, things like that. And I would do $100 down, $50 a month, and start generating this true passive income. It didn't require property managers. It didn't require maintenance and checking in on things. It was the idea of true cash flow. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you're finding tax defaulted properties,
right,
selling them on on payment plans essentially. And what kind of qualities are you looking for in this raw land? I mean, you're spread across the country. Are these like residential lots? Is this more like agricultural land, industrial? Like what exactly are you looking at?
So what I'm targeting is recreational type properties, because if you're buying within the city, you're still going to have city regulations. If the grass isn't cut, they're going to fine you. So we want to buy stuff in the middle of nowhere. And my typical client is like the blue collar guy who, probably works in a factory, makes 40, 50 grand a year. And he just wants to own that piece of the dream. And then on the weekend, he can go out there and camp and shoot guns, drink beer, whatever his fun thing is to do. So that's my typical client. So we're buying property in the middle of nowhere. We search everything on Google Earth. I've never been to a single one of these parcels. And the goal is to have my cash back in 1 year. That's kind of how we structure it.
Okay. How are you finding these properties via different states? I mean, you're spread across the country. So
what I do there's probably 4 big teachers in this space. And what they all say is you do tons of direct mail marketing and you sort through the deals and then you go ahead and make your offers and close on them. Now, to me, that seems like a lot of work. So I went out to all the wholesalers that were doing this. Said, look, I have disposable cash at hand. If you need to wholesale any of your inventory, this is what I pay for these properties. And I just send them a list. And then they would come back at me, okay, I could give you these 5 at your price point. I could give you this one. So I was able to avoid doing all the direct mail work and just go directly to the guys that were doing that and buy their inventory. Then I would just turn around and handle the marketing side. And
you've really learned how to cut some things out of the process. Congrats. You're streamlining things for sure. It's all virtual. So that's cool. You can just sit from your recliner at home and look at these lots on Google Earth. Like you said, you're buying these now when you sell this on seller financing to a buyer.
Yes.
Can you talk about how that process works?
Yeah, so in being completely upfront, there's a massive default rate in this. You're still dealing with a lower end client. It's just like what I was doing in Cleveland, dealing in the hoods of Cleveland. You have a lower caliber client you're dealing with. So there's a high default rate, but basically what it looks like, I either send paid traffic to a squeeze page and then do email marketing to them, or I'll list on like Craigslist and eBay, like I said. The average deal is $100 down, $50 a month. We'll take payments through, a couple different credit card merchants, money orders, PayPal, things like that. The default rate usually comes in about 6 months out. And here's the analogy I kind of give. I'm here in Cleveland. Summertime comes and it's freezing here year round, but summertime comes, everybody goes out and buys a boat. They want to be out on the lake. You're only allowed to be on the lake for 6 weeks out of the year because the weather sucks here. And then at the end of the season, everybody's like, what am I doing with this boat? And they just fire sell it for nothing. So it's the same thing in land. Everybody wants to own land, and we don't set people up to default. But after 6 months, they're like, I really don't even care about this. And we're able to take it back because the contract is basically a lease purchase on them. If they fulfill their obligation, we deed it right over to them. And if they want to walk away, I give a 90-day grace period and work with them any way possible if they're just falling on hard times. And if not, that's fine. We take it back and we cycle it right back through again.
Yeah, I think that's really cool that you've got that 90-day grace period. It's not like you're out being a predatory, lender per se, and targeting people who aren't going to be able to make the bill. These payment schemes seem very low. $100 down, $50, $75 a month is a very low payment. So, how did you come up with that kind of
Well, what I was doing was, I seen a lot of what a lot of the other guys were doing out there, and I wanted to open up the pool a little bit bigger, and I was also looking as a rate of return. So if I'm literally buying a property for $250 and I can get $100 down and $50 a month, that's fine by me. Whereas a lot of guys are doing $250 down, then a $150 doc fee, and then $100. I just feel like there's a lot of junk fees, and I don't like that. I just want to make it as easy for the consumer as possible. And then if they want to walk away, it's still painless for them. It was just a couple bucks anyway. They got to experience it, and if they're done, they're done. So that was just my analogy, and it was still beating the rate of return I was getting doing these hood properties in Cleveland. So that was a bigger part of it too. If I could still hit the rate of return that I need, which 20% plus, and eliminate all the headaches, that's kind of how I set everything up.
Yeah, right. And when you're holding title and you've got someone buying a piece of land from you, do you have any holding costs such as property taxes, or are those costs passed on to the buyer?
They are passed on to the buyer once we enter into contract, but here's the beauty of it. The type of properties we're buying, our annual taxes on them are literally, on most of them, under $5 a year. So
oh, wow.
Sitting on this thing, you don't bleed on it at all. The Florida deals are a little more expensive, but even then you're paying $50 to $75 a year for taxes. So it's still a nothing tax bill.
Okay. And do you have a certain size acreage that you're typically selling? Is it 1 acre, 5, 20?
Yeah, so the sweet spot is 5 and under, I think. I've done 10-acre parcels, and when they do sell, you actually do have a more qualified buyer, and they stick around, but you do sit on for about 6 months before you get that buyer, whereas 5 acres all the way down to a quarter acre, they sell within 30 days every time.
Mm-hmm. And these are just strictly raw land parcels. There no civil, no structural, no fences, anything like that.
Right. Now, Florida's a little different. There'll be some houses around in the Florida areas, but the New Mexico stuff, the Southeast California, you're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's your parcel and that's it.
So you have a pretty specific customer when you're looking at, parcels in the middle of New Mexico or Southeast California, right? I mean, it's got to be somebody who's probably local. You're not going to have somebody flying out to their 1 acre parcel every weekend, right?
Well, here's what's interesting. Yeah, I do have that client that lives, an hour away from the property, but I have people that I'm selling to in, Chicago, Indiana. I have people in Florida that are buying my stuff in New Mexico. So it's weird. It's open to everybody. But yeah, that's kind of the thing. When I sell to a guy in Chicago, he does realize 6 months later, he's like, I am never going to visit this property. So I'm just going to walk away.
Yeah. Okay. So Mike, you've done a little bit of everything real estate investing wise. Could you talk a little bit about the fundamental differences so far you've experienced between your hard asset real estate investing versus your raw land?
So for me, I'm all about, simplicity and stress-free investing at this point. I'm 37 years old, so I've been in the trenches getting dirty. There's plenty of people that absolutely kill it in residential and commercial, but I'm not good at building out rock star teams that I could keep an eye on everybody and trust everybody. I guess I have some trust issues in life. So with the residential assets, you have to have a good property manager. You have to have a good contractor. And if someone's stealing from you, you have to start the cycle all over again. Whereas with the land, I have one virtual assistant. All the wholesalers I deal with, they're all independent contractors, so I don't have to worry about them taking anything from me. And it's very streamlined. So that's why I lean more towards the, doing the raw land. And I've even done notes, private money lending for people. And even then, you have people default, and then you have to legally take back the property, which once again brings in the stress and the headache. So for me, out of all the real estate models out there, I think land is a great place to park at least a portion of your money and diversify into this. And I will say this, there's tons of newbies out there, and they all want to get in the game and they have whatever excuse in their head. Real estate investing across the board is pretty much the same model, no matter what your vehicle is, whether it's a single family home, a fourplex, or a commercial building. We're buying low, we're generating cash flow, or we're flipping it. With raw land, you could get into it for a couple $100. You spend a couple $100 on your first advertising piece, and you understand all the moving parts. And if you want to be a big residential flipper, once you understand the game doing those baby steps, you can transition into the bigger game if that's what you want. And you'll have all the confidence to do so. So you don't have to necessarily start out doing residential deals, ponying up $100,000+ to get your first deal done. You can start with a couple $100, get your feet wet with it, and then go ahead and step up your game from there.
Okay, so you've got a much smaller team when you're with your raw land investing, so you can kind of keep in more direct contact with those members. Now, a question I have for you is, what kind of leverage can you get on your raw land investments?
As far as borrowing against them?
Yes, right.
Okay, so this is kind of my approach with it is I have a good relationship with my private money lenders. So I will let them know up front, hey, I'm going after 30, 40 parcels this week. And I typically go to them and I'll borrow a $20,000 hand. They're private money guys, so they're anywhere from 12 to 15%. They'll put up the money, just cut me a check. I give them a promissory note for principal and interest payments. And over 36 months, they get their money back. And then I just keep cycling it through on the deals. So as far as, if you're talking like a refi, my model, I don't know that you could actually do for, refinancing them and pulling out cash. But if you have it all mapped out on a good plan up front, you could present your lender with it and say, this is what the money's going to go to. This is how we're going to generate cash flow from it. And this is how you're protected. So the front end approach is much easier through raw land versus acquiring parcels, waiting for appreciation, and then refinancing them and pulling the money out and rolling it over.
Yeah, okay. So you're essentially just collecting and building a fund of hard money and then going out and buying assets and just recirculating that capital, that is. Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. All right, Mike, can you talk about some of your best deals and worst deals, specifically in raw land to this date?
Specifically in raw land. Okay.
You had any like busts or bought something, that turned out to be a landfill or
in the resident, no real busts in the land game. I can tell you, I purchased a property that I paid technically too much for it, $700, and it took me 7 months to sell, but now it's cash flowing just fine, so my money's coming back. But that's not a good bust story. We want to hear about me falling flat on my
Okay, yeah, let's hear a good bust story then.
I will say this. So I told you my story in the beginning about how I had lost everything. That was a pretty big bust. And to this day, even the most savviest of investors, you're going to make a bad investment. But what's key is when you have education in the real estate game and you understand all sorts of different strategies, it really is hard to lose. So, we still have residential properties in our portfolio. Things come up, we're bleeding on them, but we could switch up the strategy and lease option one of them off, generate more cash flow and get it going again. So yeah, I mean, as far as my worst deals, it was me diving in head first, doing zero research, buying everything, and then losing everything, my personal home, my cars, money, the whole deal. So that was my worst. Then getting educated, it's hard to lose once you have that. My best deal I will share was, it wasn't even anything that big. It was just a confidence piece where I met a private money lender. He had no clue who I was. I never met him before. It was small talk between a friend of mine and I, and she said, this guy's coming in from Naples, Florida. He's going to fund an internet cafe for me. He has tons and tons of money. And this is when I was doing residential properties. I said, well, here's what I'm working on right now. And I'm looking to raise money. She's like, I'm going to set a meeting. You sit down with this guy and pitch him. And I drove out, met with this guy, and I was a nervous wreck, pouring sweat and everything. Like I said, we didn't know each other at all, but I mapped everything out. And that was a big barrier breakdown for me, where I was able to show somebody that I didn't know exactly what I planned on doing with their money and how they were going to get their return, how they were protected on it. And within a week, he was sliding a check across the table to me. And those are the biggest wins there, is when you had this self-doubt inside of you and you finally step up and break down the barriers and you're able to level up again and keep pushing forward.
Yeah, kind of like your aha moment, right? Like, wow, I just did this. It works. It's a legitimate model. So awesome.
Absolutely.
All right, Mike, can you tell us a little bit about how you've built your team for your raw land investing? I know it's fairly small. You've got a virtual assistant. What kind of processes are you doing? Are you scouring, potential buyers every month? Like, how are you operating?
Yeah, so basically, I have one virtual assistant, and anybody that doesn't have an assistant, you need to go out and hire one now. It's the biggest time saver ever. And my bill's like $25 a week. It's nothing. So I have a virtual assistant that does one property a day, 3 times on Craigslist. And then they manage an Instagram account for me. And that's it. That keeps, that aspect of the business covered with free Craigslist marketing. And then as far as acquisitions and getting deals, I have probably a dozen wholesalers I work with. And same thing, I just kind of have a template that I did up one time, and then I tweak it for every time we're ready to buy. So I'll say, we're looking for 10 properties in New Mexico right now. Here's the sizes. Here's the budget. Can you fill the order? And, I'll just blast it out to everybody. And then my email box starts filling up. And then I just go ahead and make a move on those. And as those start performing, then we send out another one. Hey, this is what we need this week. Who can fill these orders? So everybody's basically an independent contractor, because I hate having employees and being responsible for not only paying somebody, but making sure they're working right and being profitable to the company. So if everybody's independent, they're responsible for their own income. And that's been a win for me. It's, a load of stress off my plate, and we're able to keep pushing forward without me worrying about, is everybody doing their job?
Yeah, that's awesome. So this is a really cool business model in the fact that it's location independence, which is something I've been talking about recently. You're able to do this from wherever, whenever, along with all of your your contractors. So, I mean, you're just operating, when you want, where you want, how you want. So really cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
So Mike, can you tell us about your future goals with your all-in investing?
So future goals are, I obviously want to keep scaling. I want to get to the point where we're doing $50,000 a month in true passive income. That's figuring default rates and everything. We're netting out $50K. Should be there within 2 years, no problem. And then aside from that, I've always been a hustler at heart. So I always like trying different models, helping people out, and seeing other people scale their businesses. So, we want going to launch a new podcast in 2 weeks. We're excited about that. And it's going to cover everything, a lot of sales and marketing, because that's the core of all of our businesses that I think people need to learn. So help people build theirs up at the same time, building my business as well. And then as far as personal stuff, just getting more quality time with my family. We're all after that monetary goal, and we all seem to work our brains out, but then we miss out on what's most important. So trying to get that balance of generating enough income to provide the freedom lifestyle we all want, and yet still getting in that true quality time with our loved ones,
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a much larger vision of, lifestyle design and lifestyle freedom and having that passive income rather than you're so much a raw land junkie. I mean, you've got raw land as your tool to achieve your goal, it sounds.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So Mike, tell us more about this podcast coming up. I think we're all podcast junkies here. I've not heard of many, if any, raw land podcasts. So you have a name picked out? Can you tell us a little bit about it? Tease us.
This is going to be the Wantrepreneur Startup. So if anybody's come across my stuff before, we had the Taking Action Today podcast, very real estate related. Then we had real estate strategy session, once again, very real estate related. On a personal note, I don't like talking about real estate day in and day out. There's other things I get involved with. I think it's fun to try different things and just see how you can generate new income and just have fun with it. So the new show is going to be the Wantrepreneur Startup. We're going to be on iTunes, and then we're also going to stream it to YouTube as well. But it's going to be marketing strategies, sales strategies, turning trash into cash. There's going to be tons of real estate strategies in there as well. But I want to show people that I think everybody's hung up on this, the traditional education, and you have to have this college degree to make $100,000. And it's not the case. Really, you have to have a hustler mentality, and you have to be willing to go do whatever to make it happen. So we're going to share everything from, turning trash into cash, investing into real estate, diversifying your investments, all sorts of different things you could do to build yourself up and ultimately, become a solopreneur, the entrepreneur, generate your dream lifestyle in the end. So that's going to be the premise of the show there.
Yeah. Awesome. That sounds cool. Well, we look forward to the launch, and we'll certainly put a description in the show notes.
That's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So Mike, what are your reasons why? You've touched on them a little bit, but what drives you? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
So a couple of different things. One of the biggest one is I like to see how much bigger I could go. It kind of starts back. We're all teenagers, and we're thinking about, if I could just make $200 a week, and then you hit that, and then you want to hit 500, then 1,000, then 2,000, then you're like, can I do 2,000 in a day? So, the business side of it, it's how much harder can I push this? How much bigger can I get? And, we were just talking about podcasts. I love listening to the biggest fish out there, like, Grant Cardone's and Gary Vee's, because they're just insane. So that's like the motivation of, well, if they could do it, I could do it. So I love to see how much bigger I could go. And I'm a high school dropout too. That's why I touch base on that other stuff as well, because I want people to know you can build whatever if you're determined. So that's a big part that I'm driven about. I want to show my kids that you could build any lifestyle you want. That's my other big why in life. You could still go take these massive beach vacations and still hustle like crazy, and generate great money on your terms.
Yeah, that's awesome. You mentioned something earlier about not necessarily needing a formal education. I have a formal education, and it's gotten me just fine in life, but I really like that philosophy of, just if you've got the hustle in you, if you've got the desire, the passion to succeed, that's really what it takes.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I appreciate that.
All right, Mike. So wrapping up here, we've got a lightning round, just a series of questions we'll fire at you and you just shoot from the hip. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
Okay, cool. We're getting started. What was your biggest hurdle getting started in real estate investing and how did you overcome it?
So my biggest hurdle, I will say, after I crashed, because I went in blindly like an idiot, after I crashed was building the confidence up to get back in the game. I knew it's what I wanted. I knew I had to have it, but I was scared to death to fail again. So how I was able to overcome that was when I picked up Tony Robbins' program. I got the Get the Edge and Personal Power CD set. And I literally, listened to every CD and I did everything this guy said for a year straight. And that's how I saw big results in my life in all businesses, not just real estate. But the biggest thing was that gave me the confidence to take risk again, put myself out there and start scaling.
Awesome. Do you have a personal habit that contributes to your success?
Yeah, for sure. Daily workout and starting your day off with a good meal. So, and I'm not saying you have to go to the gym and, hammer out a bunch of weights and get crazy, but a good 30-minute cardio, a walk, a run, just something to get the juices flowing, to get your mind working, and you start thinking strategically, and then just put good stuff in your body as well. Huge game changer.
Yeah, feel your body right off the bat. It's important. Do you have an online resource that you find valuable? I'm sure you being a mostly virtual guy, I've got a lot of stuff up your sleeve. So could you share something with us that you really like?
Yeah, so, and these are older things here, so I'm sure your audience is already very hip to it, but I absolutely love DocuSign. That's, resource, which I don't know why I wasn't using that years ago. Massive Time Saver, and then Vumber and Lead Pages. Those are my big go-to resources.
What was that second one? Vumber,
Vumber.
What is that?
It's a text voicemail service. So you get 2 phone numbers for $10 a month. You set up your voicemails on it. People could text those numbers, and it's not blowing up your personal phone. It just goes to your emails. And then when you check your emails later on, you see, who likes you, who hates you, and who you need to sell a deal to.
So it's a number a client calls and it goes essentially straight to voicemail?
Right. And then they can text it too, but your email retrieves everything. So you just check it when you're ready, and then you reply to whoever is, a good client there that you want to move forward with.
Okay, cool. Mike, what book would you recommend to the listeners and why?
I'm going to say, I would have to say Tony Robbins, since I've been preaching it this whole time. It's an audio set, but Get the Edge and Personal Power was absolutely what changed my life. And there's dozens of books I could recommend, but I would say go after a personal development book or program, and don't just buy it and sit it on your desk and wait for something to happen. I mean, fully dive into it and take action on it daily. You'd be shocked at what you're capable of, no matter where you're at in your life right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Personal development books are my favorite types of books to reread because, you can read strategies and books about taxes and flipping and, all kinds of technical strategies. But the ones that are, talking about personal development, if you go back and reread them, you get something a little bit more out of it each time. So,
yeah, I agree with that 100%. And keep them like around your house. You could even open them up and just hammer out one page and you'd be like, that's right. And then you put it down and you could go ahead and make a move on it, Yeah, definitely like bite-sized segments you can just implement immediately. Mm-hmm.
All right, so if you were to give advice to your 20-year-old self to get started in real estate investing, what would it be? Looking back, knowing what you know now.
Looking back at my 20-year-old self, I would say go get a mentor that is really, truly doing the business. And even if you don't have money, work your butt off for this guy or gal and learn the business hands-on. And then from there, go ahead and hustle up some money, get strategic, and get in the game. Like I said, I jumped in blindly and I fell flat on my face. It was a miserable experience. Had I had a mentor, even though I didn't have a ton of money, I could have traded my time, my labor, whatever, to learn firsthand how to run the business, and then probably been a heck of a lot more successful right out of the gate doing that. So absolutely get a mentor, get someone that's actually doing it, not the infomercial guy that's telling you he does it.
Yeah, absolutely. Great advice. All right, Mike, as we're wrapping up here, is there anything you'd like to leave with our audience? Any parting piece of guidance?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, like I said earlier, you are far more capable of doing than what you think you are. So stop sitting on the fence, no matter what level you're at. Just go out there and take baby steps at whatever your next goal is, achieve that and keep pushing forward. You will constantly be able to build on these small wins. And a year from now, you'll be wishing you had started 12 months ago, like we've always heard. So, stop sitting on the fence. Go out there, just take action on it and just do it in baby steps so it doesn't hurt when you do fall. You can get back up and you keep pushing forward.
Awesome. Awesome advice, Mike. All right, Mike, where can our guest learn more about you?
So I would say if anybody's interested in learning about this raw land flipping business, stop by thelandflippingformula.com. I have a free audio over there. Literally tells you step-by-step how I run my business, and you could just follow those steps and take little baby investments and get in the game if you're interested. And if you want to jump on a call, just give me a shout at 440-678-1147. You could call or text that number, and I'll get back to you right away.
All right, perfect. We'll link that stuff to the show notes, and we appreciate you coming on the show today, Mike.
No, this has been huge. I really appreciate the opportunity.
All right, Mike. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks.
You've been listening to the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom podcast, providing you actionable content to build your real estate empire. Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for personal advice. The opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have a potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom, LLC, exclusively.